Gospel, chapter 16, beginning with verse 13. When Jesus came into the coast of Caesarea Philippi, that's where we are now, he asked his disciples, saying, "Who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" And they said, "Some say that you are John the Baptist. Some say Elijah. Others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He saith unto them, "But whom say you that I am?" And Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered and said to him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter. And upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give to you the keys to the kingdom. And whatsoever you will bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatsoever you shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Then he charged his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Jesus the Messiah. The question, who do men say that I am? Jesus one time asked the Pharisees, "What think ye of Christ? Whose son is he?" Jesus was asking them a lead question. He knew that they knew the prophecies that the Messiah would be the son of David. And the word Christ, Christos in Greek, is the Hebrew word for Messiah. So, what think ye of the Messiah? Whose son is he? But taking the text really out of its context and playing a little bit with it, which we ministers sometimes like to do, the question itself is sort of an important question. What do you think of Jesus Christ? Whose son is he? And you have a multiple choice, I guess. He obviously, or it apparently, wasn't the son of Joseph. Joseph was troubled when he found out that Mary was pregnant. So he was either the son of some unnamed young rogue in Nazareth, and Mary was covering her sin, or he was the Son of God. You know, you're not left with many choices here. And here he is saying, what do you think of the Messiah? Whose son is he? And the question is very relevant to each of us today. What do you really think of Jesus Christ? Whose son is he? And if you acknowledge that he was the Son of God, then you have some tremendous obligations and responsibilities towards him. You see, you just can't say, well, he was the Son of God, and pass it off. Then all of a sudden, you are responsible for what you know. Now here at Caesarea, the question wasn't whose son is he, but the question was, who do people think that I am? By this time, he had performed a lot of miracles. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of notoriety. And who do people think that I am? So they gave to him the very current, things. Some thought that he was Elijah come back from the dead. Some thought that he was Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. And then he asked the important, but who do you say that I am? Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Messiah, the Christ. You are the Son of the living God." And Jesus said, "Peter, flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father which is in heaven." You've had a spiritual revelation. And I say unto you that you are Petros. Now the Greek word Petros is a little stone. I say unto you, you are Petros, a little stone. But upon this rock, Petra, in the Greek, I will build my church. Now over here behind you have a Petra. And you can compare the Petra with the Petros. What is the foundation upon which the church has been built? The Petros or the Petra? The confession that Peter made, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. That's the foundation of the church. If you don't have that, you don't have the church. It's built upon, as Paul said, no other foundation have we than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. But the confession of Peter, and unfortunately people have not known the Greek or they have confused this, and they've taken the confession they've taken it to mean that Peter is the rock. No, Peter's confession is the foundation stone of the church, and that is that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus then began to tell his disciples how that he was to be betrayed, delivered over unto the Gentiles, crucified, and would rise again the third day. And Peter began to rebuke him. Said, Lord, be that far from thee. We don't like the cross. It's opposing to our flesh. And when Jesus talked about the cross, Peter didn't like it. And he began to rebuke him, but Jesus turned and rebuked Peter. And he said, get behind me, Satan. You offend me because you don't know the things that are of God and the things that are of man. If Peter was the rock upon which the church was built, the church has already crumbled before it's got to start. Now, at that point, Jesus said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. He laid out the terms for discipleship. And they were severe. First of all, the denial of self. Jesus said, if you want to come after me, deny yourself. Cut off the old flesh life. But the interesting thing to me is that men will always tell us what we need to deny ourselves of. Jesus didn't. What then am I to deny myself? Whatever it is that's standing between you and God. What is it that is keeping you from a full commitment? That's the thing that Jesus would put his finger on in your life. Remember the one day the rich young ruler came? With him it was his riches. And the Lord put the finger on it. But whatever it is in your life, that's the thing that the Lord will speak to you about. Say, hey, cut it off. Deny yourself. Secondly, take up your cross. The cross to Jesus was that submitting to the will of the Father completely. What is it that God wants you to do? With Jesus, it was the cross. That he came to. In the garden, he prayed, "Not my will, thine be done." Talking about the cross, Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass. Nevertheless, not what I will. It was the will of the Father for his life. It was the submission of himself to God's will. And that's what it is in your life. It's just that surrendering yourself over to the will of God. The third thing Jesus said was, follow me. And it's a marvelous life when you follow Jesus Christ. Glorious life. It's interesting to me that we seem to try to present the gospel to people as something that doesn't cost much. But Jesus never did present a easy kind of a gospel. We try to paint up the rosy side. Oh, it's such joy, it's such peace, and there's love, and we try to entice men to the more attractive aspects of the gospel. Jesus didn't. In fact, Jesus seemed to almost hold up the cross before anybody comes. Remember the young fellow that came and said, Lord, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus more or less said, you know what you're saying? The foxes have their holes. The birds of the air have their nests. I don't have any place to lay my head. You're ready to follow? And we so often are painting it, as just so easy and no cost, no sacrifice. But Jesus never did that. He said, look, if you want to come after me, you're going to have to deny self, the self-life. You're going to have to submit yourself unto God, unto the will of God, following the example really that I have set for you, following me. The cost of discipleship. And it's not a cheap gospel. And it's not something that, we just say, well, come and from now on your life is just going to be filled with roses and it's going to be pleasant. You're not going to have any problems. No, that's not so. Jesus said, look, it does cost. The denial of the self-life, the self-walk. You've got to take up your cross. You've got to follow me. And yet, the reward, the eternal reward of following Jesus Christ. And so Moses chose rather to suffer affliction with the children of God than to enjoy the pleasures of Egypt for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt. Because it said he esteemed the long term, the eternal. Our problem is that we get so involved in the immediate, in the present, we don't consider the eternal. And that's a dangerous mistake to make. And so Jesus, after laying out the difficulties, holding up and said, look, you want to be my disciple, it's going to cost you self-denial. You're going to have to take up your cross and follow me. But what would it profit a man if he would gain the whole world and yet lose his own soul? You see, he brought us into the eternal perspective. Don't just look at today and tomorrow. Look at eternity. Man's life, what is it? It's a vapor. We appear for a moment and then we are gone. But we're not gone. We are living eternally. What shall a man profit if he gain the whole world and yet would lose his own soul? Jesus then said, and what will a man give in exchange for his soul? Now, if Satan should come up to you on the path down here and say, hey, come over here, I got a deal. I like you, I want to buy you, what's your price? What would you charge him for your soul? What would a man give in exchange for his soul? How much would he have to offer you? You know, I see so many people selling out cheap. Few moments of pleasure. Few glass beads. A few dollars, and they sell their soul. But do they really know what they're doing? Do they really consider the eternal consequences? What will a man give in exchange for his soul? These are the probing questions that Jesus asked here in Caesarea Philippi upon the recognition that he indeed was the Messiah. Yes, he is. He is the Son of God. He is the promised Messiah. And there is eternal life to those that will believe him and receive him. But you've got to deny yourself. You've got to take up his cross. You've got to follow him. But there's a good rationale to that. What will it profit you if you would gain the whole world but yet lose your soul? What would you give in exchange for your soul? Something to think about as we are here at Caesarea.